one of Seattle's most spectacular and tumultuous celebrations began with a presidential push of a historic telegraph key. Studded with Yukon gold mined by prospector George Carmack, the key had first been pressed by William Howard Taft to open Seattle's 1909 Alaska-Yukon Pacific Exposition. On the day of our then photo, Herbert Hoover's finger hovered over the button in the other Washington, waiting for the appointed minute to arrive. The 6-lane George Washington Memorial Bridge, yet to acquire its Aurora Bridge moniker, stood empty on February 22, 1932, the bicentennial of our first president's birth. But thousands of eager celebrants waited at its north and south ends, waiting for the signal. Among them were jubilant Fremont and Wallingford residents who had lobbied for years for a north-south highway to bypass the oft-opening Fremont Bridge. Representatives from Mexico and Canada also paid homage to this vital link in the Pacific Coast highway chain. Washington Governor Roland H. Hartley, 1864 to 1952, though a longtime opponent of state highways, he once described them as hard-surface joyrides, nevertheless prepared a lengthy speech extolling the hugely popular venture. On Lake Union, 167 feet below, the fireboat Alki also waited, water cannons at the ready, while field pieces of the 146th Field Artillery were primed to release an ear-splitting volley. Among the dignitaries, Carolyn McGilvra Burke, widow of Judge Thomas Burke, prepared a time capsule to be sealed into the bridge containing a message from 1932 Seattleites to those 100 years in the future. At precisely 2:57 p.m. Pacific time, Hoover poked the golden telegraph to kick things off. Almost instantly, trumpets blared, a 21-gun salute roared, streams of water arched into the air, and a giant flag unfurled from above. Interrupted mid-speech, a bloviating Hartley cried into his microphone, "The President has just pressed the key!" But his words were lost in the crowd's huzzah. With Canadian emissary Vancouver Alderman W.H. Lemke, Hartley sawed through a 1-foot-wide, 68-foot-long Douglas fir, jokingly called a ribbon by the assembled, that extended across the bridge's northern approach. Mexican consul W.P. Lawton enthusiastically squirted oil onto the crosscut blade. The ribbon finally severed, a siren signaled that the bridge was open to foot traffic. Youngsters galloping ahead were the first to meet across the great span, reported the Seattle Times. Soon, the bridge was a black mass of citizens, joining and intermingling across its length and width. An estimated 20,000 people had gathered to mark its dedication. In its final hurrah, the gold-studded presidential key was tapped by President John F. Kennedy to open the 1962 Seattle World's Fair. In our first then photo, in this northeast-facing view, thousands of Seattleites crowd the newly opened George Washington Memorial Bridge, aka the Aurora Bridge. The giant flag, upper right, was unfurled with the press of President Herbert Hoover's finger. In our second then photo, in an unidentified location in the White House, Hoover was photographed just before or after pressing the golden telegraph key. In our first now photo, the Aurora Bridge is captured by the use of a 20-foot extension pole to evade view-blocking greenery during a Friday rush hour. 70 feet wide and 2,945 feet long, the bridge is one of Seattle's most traveled arterials, carrying more than 65,000 vehicles each weekday. In our second now photo, a plaque at the south end of the bridge marks the spot where a sealed time capsule was placed by Carolyn McGilvra Burke. Its 1932 contents are to be revealed in 8 years. In our final now photo, the presidential key's Alaskan marble base is studded with 22 gold nuggets found in the Yukon by prospector George Washington Carmack.